Good evening and welcome, everybody. And to the council, thank you all for being here, especially we do have a quorum, fortunately. It is 6:30, and I'm calling this meeting of the Common Council of the City of Wausau to order on Tuesday, March 10th, 2020, here at 6:30. We'll begin tonight's proceedings with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please hit yes to indicate your presence for voting. Eight are present. Thank you.
And we have no proclamations, but we do have one member of our audience, a resident, to speak for public comment. Mr. Chuck Robinson, if you could come up, please, state your name and address, and please, 3 minutes. Thank you, sir. I like the way you smile, so.
Chuck Robinson, 2221 Ridgeview Drive in Wausau. I put on your desk tonight a summary, up to date, really up to date, about what I've been doing and other people have been contributing to for a senior center. It's a summary. I'm going to read the introduction to you. There are three important things in this report. One is that instead of having an $85,000 elevator in it, found a way to put in a ramp for the handicapped people for $20,000. It's a big lowering of the price. Another issue is something that can be delayed. It's a front entrance to keep the bad weather out, winter and summer. Okay. The city of Wausau is building a new firehouse, and they have no known plans to use the older one. I believe the expected occupancy for the new facility, these are my dates, May and June of this year. A presentation to the police, fire department, commissioners, as well as 2 presentations to the Water City Council requesting that they propose the old building or sell it at a favorable price for a senior center was widely accepted. I think that's a fair statement. But no action has been taken. You'll find in the booklet a flyover view that shows that the access to the building involved is very, very good because it's covered by 3 streets and there's generous parking in the area. Acquisition of the original construction plans in 1970 were obtainable, and from that line drawings were made for the individual contractors so they could return with a good quote, close quote for budget planning. The statements will show that the total was $237,835, but that can be delayed. A $20,000 part of that could be delayed, and that's the front entrance to keep the weather out. There are no, the budget includes what's called an unknown for unseen things, and they're going to be there, but they're all little things like trash cans and paper bags and so on. Fundraising to pay the contractors would be from public gifts, grants, and vigorous promotion and advertising direct from the public. The labor costs both inside and outside would be very low because these activities would be covered by volunteers. Now, this follows 2 other models that I know of. One's in Eau Claire and one's in Parker, Colorado. It's all volunteer. Members are expected to volunteer for 4 hours work per week, and that keeps the costs down. But there will be some service fees, utilities and accountants, possibly not even accountants. These are accounted for. A spreadsheet is inside that was obtained from the city that gives the expenses of the electricity and gas for 24 contiguous months. And from that, an estimate was made as to what the cost would be to run this facility.
Mr. Robinson, just to let you know, I've got you at almost 4 minutes, if you could, please.
Okay. Can I read one more
Go ahead,
paragraph?
please.
Okay. There's another project in the works. I call it a crystal ball, and it's in the range of $3,400,000. That's what I believe it to be. This project here could be $211,000 without that front entrance. Or, in other words, 10% of what this other project is, but it's really closer to 6% for comparisons when you ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the update, sir. Okay, and then moving on for the consent agenda, starting with file 20-0201 from the City Council, the minutes of the previous meeting from February 25th, and ending with file number 20-0108 from Public Health and Safety, a resolution approving or denying various licenses as indicated. I'll accept a motion to accept the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Bartons, second by Ms. Herbst.
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
Moving on to resolutions and ordinances for file 20-0303 for mayor's appointments, there are none at this time. Moving on to file number 97-0404 from the Finance Committee, a resolution of the Finance Committee terminating tax increment district number 5. Committee action approved 5-0. The fiscal impact will be elimination of the TID 5 levy beginning in 2021. The city TID number 5 2020 levy was $329,988, and the total levy of $906,709. Entertain a motion to accept. Motion by Mr. Neal, second by Mr. Nutting.
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
File number 20-0305, an ordinance of the Plan Commission rezoning 101 North 72nd Avenue from a PUD, Plan Unit Development to a DR8 Duplex Residential 8 zoning district. Committee action approved 5-1. The fiscal impact will be none. I'll entertain a motion to accept. Motion by Ms. Herbst. Do I have a second? By Mr. Nutting. Thank you.
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
File number 20-0306, an ordinance of the Plan Commission rezoning 107 South 68th Avenue from a PUD planned unit development to an SR5 single-family residential 5 rezoning district. Committee action approved 6-0. Fiscal impact will be none. I'll entertain a motion to accept. Motion by Ms. Lawrence. Do I have a second? Mr. Peckham? Thank you.
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
File number 20-0304, a resolution of the Sustainability, Energy, and Environment Committee approving participation in the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Green Tier Legacy Community Program. Committee action approved 4-0. The fiscal impact will be none. Entertain a motion to accept. Motion by Mrs. Rasmussen, second by Mr. Peckham. And Mr. Peckham has something to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm really excited about our participation in this program. The only concern the Sustainability, Energy, and Environment Committee had was staff time, but Mr. Sipple indicated that he had spoken to other participants and he thought that the staff time required would be very manageable. He has a personal interest in this sort of thing, so we're lucky in that regard. And reading through the program, I was really pleased to see we're just really going to be hooked up with people doing good things, and I think that it will help us try to identify projects that we can tackle and become a better community in many ways. So, hooray.
Which is one of the reasons why this commission had been formed. So,
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
up next, to suspend the rule 1D, transmission of committee business to the council for the items marked pending committee action. A two-third vote will be required. Entertain a motion to accept. Motion by Mr. Nutting, second by Mr. Neal.
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
File number 18-1008, a resolution of the Finance Committee authorizing the issuance and sale of $5,105,000 for water system and sewer system revenue bond anticipation notes, Series 2020A. Committee action approved 4-0. The fiscal impact, if we keep it out that long, will be a maximum amount of interest. Full term would be $102,809. History is showing that we are not doing that. We're being very aggressive in paying off our debts, and we'll continue to do so. We also have Mr. Phil Cosson, our financial independent wizard and expert here tonight. If there's any questions, if you would like to make a presentation, Phil, go ahead. Otherwise, have it.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Phil Cosson with Ehlers. Nice to be back with you. Last month, John Cameron from our office was here and probably took you through the pre-sale process. You're getting this information a little bit late, handed out prior to the meeting, just prior to the meeting. And what we've handed out is two documents. One is the sale day report. There's been a slight change to it that occurred as I was driving up here. And then a final resolution for you to act upon tonight. So in your agenda, you'll see it's $5,120,000 of bonds, and what we're asking you to approve is $5,105,000, in part because the bid that was received today, it came in with some costs that were less. We were able to reduce the amount of debt being issued. If you go into the sale day packet, I'm going to tell you, not that anybody cares, but our job is very interesting these days. These unprecedented market swings that we're seeing day in and day out make life a little bit challenging to predict what's going to happen in the financial markets, and that's certainly in the financial markets means municipal bonds like you issue as well. In the back of this document, if you go to the very last page of this document, the sale day report, that kind of gives you a little window in our world as to what we're seeing in the market. This is just a one-year trend in this bond chart of what's occurred over the last 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, has really been remarkable. If I showed you a 5, 10, or 30-year bond chart, would show you that you're really hitting the very bottom of a 30-year chart as it pertains to where interest rates are. So that's why if you're on the car radio and you hear all the mortgage brokers out there talking about refinance now and how low rates are, it's the same thing for municipal bonds as well. So this issue, just as a reminder, was a short-term issue that was taken out 2 years ago. It comes due 4/1. We're going to pay that off on 4/1 and replace it with this issue, which will allow you time needed to put in place the final financing for both the wastewater and the water treatment facilities. We're continuing to work through those documents, working through PSE requirements, the Department of Administration requirements to get those loans in place. Things are really coming together nicely. We expect hopefully to have those closed sometime this summer, if not a little earlier. So as the mayor indicated, we don't expect this to be out very long, this issue. However, we've allowed for some time just in case things delay, that we don't have to come back and reissue bonds again. So if you go into the first page of this sale day report, this is all the pertinent information. We did go through a rating. It's attached here. The rating is a MIG 1, just means Moody's investment grade 1. Those are how they rate short-term issues like this. So that's a very strong rating for a short-term issue. We already received one bid. We had two firms that set up this morning. We called a number of others. Quite frankly, there's people that are kind of sitting on the sideline going, just don't know where the market is right now, and it's really hard to submit a bid for something that's going to be out a little ways. So Huntington Securities out of Chicago was a bid at 1.1632%, so a little over 1% for the next 2 years or until you pay this off. Again, costs came in less. We're expecting about $15,000 less in bonds being issued. And more importantly, what we're really, from when John was here last month and gave you some estimates, we're about $273,000 to the less than what he had projected at that point. That's really a reflection of what's happened in that curve I showed you, that bond chart, really over the last month, where we've seen a significant correction in the stock market, and treasuries have kind of followed it as well. So the good news, strong MIG-1 rating, issuing this debt for a little over 1% for as long as it needs to be out, up to 2 years, preferably shorter, and quite a bit less in principal and interest than what was projected. So that's what occurred today. There is a resolution that was also provided to you right before the meeting, and this is the final resolution that incorporates the winning bid, the interest rate, and what the payments will be identified for this debt issue. So that resolution is the one that would be acted upon.
And my apologies to everybody. In my excitement in introducing Phil, I failed to get a motion and a second. So I'll have a motion by Mr. Neal. Do I have a second? By Ms. Lawrence, thank you. Mr. Nutting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a curious question, when the bids are entertained, do the bidders know how many are bidding? Or-
No.
That's-
No, it's a silent bid, and nobody knows who set up the bid. They submitted, today it was at 10:30 a.m., they submit their bids. They don't know who else is bidding.
Thank you.
And who else is set up.
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much for the
Thank you.
update and for what you did for us. It's appreciated.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Moving on to file number 20-0308, a resolution of the Finance Committee approving Municode's full-service supplementation services to host and codify the City of Wausau's code. Committee action approved 4-0. The fiscal impact, one-time cost of $8,750 and annual cost of $1,200 to $2,000. I'll entertain a motion to accept. Motion by Mr. Nutting. Do I have a second? By Ms. Herbst. Mrs. Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think just for the public that, tunes in and watches our meetings, it's important for them to recognize that there's been a discussion for a number of years that it would be great if we had a whole-scale review of our municipal code to find things that are antiquated or out of date or things that need adjustment. And our participation in this Muni Code process will get that job done. So for anyone who has hoped for a long time that we would, relook at our code and figure out things that need to be perhaps fixed or updated, this will do that. So,
Mr. Peckham.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if our city attorney could explain, I'm particularly interested in how this might make looking things up in the code more user-friendly for citizens and perhaps even council members. How's that going to work?
Hopefully much better, Alder Peckham. I'm looking in the memo here to see which part of this would make it more searchable, but it does make it much more searchable and user-friendly for anybody, for the public, media, council people, for instance. It should be much more searchable. Plus, everybody who has Muni codes, ordinances are all in a library, so we can all access one another's ordinances very easily, too, out of the same library that we'll have. So,
So if a committee were to ask you to check into ordinances on XYZ topic, you could do so more easily with this.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds super.
Mr. Nutting?
And I think the same could be said, Mr. Mayor, of our clerk and clerk staff of entering the information and augmenting it. Maybe they could.
That's one of the main reasons why
That's,
we brought this forward. It's been something that's been discussed for a long time, and it's
Right.
just something to make, frankly, their lives a little bit easier and get things out in a more efficient way.
What will they be doing with their spare time is the question we now need to know.
They will always be busy.
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
Excuse me. File number 18-0915, a resolution of the Finance Committee recommending submission of an application for transit capital assistance funds under the VW mitigation program and acknowledges that the receipt of those funds will result in the reduction of future municipal revenue payments pursuant to statute 79.035.7 Wisconsin statutes. Committee action approved 4-0. Fiscal impact will be $253,699 total, or $25,370 annually for the next 10 years. Entertain a motion to accept. Motion by Mrs. Rasmussen. Do I have a second? Mr. Neal?
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
And I am going to be moving the addendum for file number 19-1109 up before we do closed session, just so we can get that out of the way. File number 19-1109, a resolution of the Finance Committee approving the 2020 budget modification for physical therapy services for the Wausau Police Department. Committee action approved 5-0. Fiscal impact will not exceed $20,000. Entertain a motion to accept. Motion by Mrs. Rasmussen, second by Mr. Neal.
You may begin voting.
And before we read for the closed session, is there anybody that would like to come forward and speak on a matter on tonight's agenda or anything else going on in the city of Wausau right now? Now's your chance. Anybody like to come forward and speak? Mr. Robinson, 3 minutes, please.
Yeah, Chuck Robinson, 2221 Ridgeview Drive. I read in the paper that both the mayor and wannabe mayor are having discussions about running the city with an administrator. I came from a town that was run by an administrator, and I hope that when you look into this, that you define what the administrator's job is down to a lot of detail. Because it's the town I came from, and I know it can be a lot of reasons. I had an administrator that thought that he should be a manager, and that wasn't very many years ago, but I think he's on his 4th job in some small city up in the Rocky Mountains. It just didn't work.
Thank you for your thoughts. And again, would anybody else like to come forward and speak on a matter? One more time, anybody want to come forward and speak? Public comment is now closed. Would anybody like to read for the closed session?
I will.
Ms. Rasmussen.
I'll move that we go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, paragraph 1, sub G, for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel regarding pending tax litigation involving U.S. Bank N.A., case number 16CV535 and 18CV448.
Do I have a second? Excuse me. Second by Mr. Nutting, thank you.
You may begin voting. Motion passes unanimously.
And we will reconvene in an open session when we are finished. Thank you all for coming tonight. Phil, thank you again. Everybody have a good evening. Thank you.